Any idea what this is? Yeah, I got it wrong too, and this is my job. In Southwest Florida, I did not expect to see things like papaya growing in the United States. You might see a few coconuts down here, but it turns out there's a whole tropical fruit industry revolution really happening in South Florida. We're gonna go look at papayas and coconuts and mangoes and bananas. Oh my, come on. Let me take you where the food comes from.
Thanks for coming. We're gonna walk through the farm. I'm just gonna show you some of the methods and means how we grow here, talk about what's special about this area and what we grow, and hopefully get you guys excited about what you can grow for yourselves. This is a big departure from commercial agriculture. It's not really similar at all. It's very different. So one of the early crops that we grow here is the papaya. We do bananas and papayas. We do pineapples and sugarcane. These are things that will produce in the first year to 2 to 3, depending on how long you want to keep them in your growth. These trees, this is actually a little over a year old. So we use these fast-growing trees to help produce a little bit of early shade and protect our young main fruit tree. You'll see here, I've got a small grafted mango tree here. That tree was planted last February, and it was watered one time, ever. Last year we had the worst drought we've ever had. We didn't have a rainy season through most of our typical year. We didn't actually get rain here until August. My trees survived with 0 water because I provided an environment that they could survive in. Growing things in what's called a consortium is something that's been practiced for a long, long time, but it's not conventional ag. This is not what people normally do. I'm relying on the processes of having shade over my tree. So in the middle of the day, if you can imagine, the middle of the day, the sun's the worst and it's beating down the hottest, these have an umbrella over them. So just like us, we'd probably all rather be standing in the shade than we are right now, than where we are right now. I'm providing an umbrella over these trees. I use these grasses along the edges of my beds. The grasses do several things for me. Number one, it provides additional material that I can cut in place. It also provides wind protection and frost protection. Those are really important here because we do get a few nights that are going to be in that frost zone. We might not get all the way to a freeze, but we do get into the frost, and we need to protect especially young trees from that. Has anyone grown pineapples before? Anyone had pineapples in the garden? What's the biggest challenge with growing pineapples, other than if it's too cold where you live?
Raccoons getting them.
Raccoons, that's good. Raccoons getting them, and then what's the other thing? Weeds. Okay, I want you to look at these and show me where the weeds are. These are pineapple, these aren't fruiting right now, but the pineapples are growing here without weeds. And the reason they're growing here without weeds is because most of the weeds grow in full sun, right? There isn't full sun here. So the things that are able to operate in this climate or this environment are things that have a low sun requirement, and they're usually not as weedy. Well, what you're standing in right now is what we call a food forest. So this is kind of like a tropical home garden kind of deal, and it's a mixture of species. This is something that we see a lot of people planting, especially in a backyard setting, where they want to have one mulberry, one loquat, one governor plum, one tamarind. They want to have one of everything and have kind of like a big mix. What we're trying to do with a food forest is mimic the layers of a forest. So we have things growing on the ground. In this case, we have these little cherry tomatoes. We have things that are growing up above. It could be a palm or some kind of overstory tree. And then we have shrubby trees. We have vines that grow up them. And again, we go with a succession of species. So we also plant things that help to support our young trees as they grow. So it's a big mixture. It's a little bit different from what you have up in the front, because up in the front is more production oriented. This is more appreciation and self-use oriented. One of the big challenges here for gardening is that we have nematode issues in our soil because we have such a sandy soil. So having things that are resistant to that you can use as a rootstock or a foundation are really important. Mulberry is another example. We have types of mulberries that don't like our soil because of the nematodes, and we have types that do. This one, as you can see, has no issue whatsoever. This would make a great rootstock for something like that. As we walk through, you'll see other fruit trees. I don't know, nobody wants to leave the shade, so we're gonna go right over there. There's another piece of shade. Let's just walk a little bit further. Another part of what we do is we're looking for how can something provide more than one benefit. So that's part of the game here. What's really special about these mango relative varieties is that they have basically no disease problems. So the next generation of mango farmer is probably going to be working with some kind of hybrid between this and Mangifera indica. If you'll notice, there's basically no scabs, no cut leaves, no nothing happening on these trees. Even the ones that have fruit on them, completely clean fruit. This is not sprayed, there's nothing happening here. This is just how they naturally are. They have a resistance to the diseases because they come from the jungle. Part of what this is about is giving power to the farmer, power to the people. I want people to know how they can grow and get into this without it costing so much money. So this is something, learning how to graft, learning how to propagate, learning how to work with the species that are found naturally around you are valuable pieces that are going to help you get into the game without having to break the bank. So this is just one piece of that. So hopefully that means something to somebody. But to me, having fruit 1 year later is just unbelievable.
One thing about growing tropical fruit, you got to be in a kind of tropical climate. I mean, it's May, we're getting on towards the end of May, but it's still May. But man, Matthew, we've been out in your food forest and out in the jungle here this morning. It's already blistering. I mean, it's almost oppressively hot. Yep. This is what you deal with every day. This is the reality of farming everywhere, but especially in more southern climes. It gets kind of brutal out there.
It does. You have to design your day around that. That's why the old adage of the farmer being up so early in the morning, that's just as important here as anywhere else. I try to do most of my heavy work in the morning before it gets really crazy. Mm-hmm. Spend the midday kind of recovering and then have an afternoon work session or off-farm work, depending on whatever I have to do.
We've traveled far and wide. I mean, we go across the country and we've seen every kind of farming that there is, but of course, mostly we see conventional farming. You've got the certain fields and the certain rows, and this grows in this field. And number one, none of this production agriculture is like Mr. McGregor's garden in Peter Rabbit, which we all grew up with. And you got a little peas here and some carrots here and some tomatoes here and some potatoes here, and it's all neat and lovely. And you got the whole garden mix right there. Looking at something like what you've put together here, you're really kind of doing a full 360. You're not farming part of the circle, you're farming the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a completely different approach. The way that I have learned to look at things is more from natural processes and trying to be an engaged part of the system versus bringing in so much input. It's not an easy thing to do. It's something that I'm still learning about myself, but it does definitely have some benefits.
What brought you down this road? What's your background? What's your family background?
So I grew up in the Southeast. I've been in Florida since high school age, pretty much. My professional career started off civil engineer. I did civil engineer, coastal engineer.
What did your folks do?
My dad was a FedEx.
So no farming.
And my mom was a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there farming in it? There's farming in everybody's family tree if you go back far enough, but was it in your grandparents, anybody?
Nothing recent. In the Carolinas, my grandparents had chickens and a few things, but it wasn't part of their livelihood. It was just a side thing.
So what happened to you?
So for
You had
me,
a good job and everything, Matthew.
well, you know, when I was back in school days, I found out about something called permaculture, and it was a design science about how to basically design your life around food production and community, and how to. It's a pretty deep topic, but it really got me intrigued about how to do things a little bit differently. And when we finally moved here after school, after my wife finished her school, seeing what was around here, what kind of fruit trees were growing in this area, just kind of opened my mind. We started gardening at home. As an engineer, I had a pretty set career doing that. Mostly it was coastal restoration work, so it had me traveling a lot.
Sure.
But when we started having kids, I wanted to be home, and I started to go through some dietary changes. I had some health issues earlier and was trying to figure out how to eat cleaner and do all that kind of stuff. So it really kind of coalesced into me leaning into this. And then so for a while we were kind of doing it at home. We ended up having an opportunity to buy a piece of land and really take a hobby way out of a hobby.
Way out of hobby range, yeah. So now these are some of your bananas.
Yep, these are Thai bananas.
Are these all the same?
Yeah, these are the same.
The same.
So these are ones we just harvested, and they're green, but they are mature green. So these will ripen naturally. And in a few days, they'll turn yellow just like that.
They're also adorable.
They're cuties, right?
Yeah.
So what we look for when we're ripening this variety is that we want it to go all the way yellow, all the way to the stem. You see how this one's still green?
Right.
That one's yellow all the way to the end.
So is that one going to
ready
be
to eat.
more sour or tangy? Or
This one's a little underdeveloped, so it may not might not be one that would
so
be.
like this would be one that's good to have now.
Yeah, perfect.
I bet kids go nuts for these things.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna have one too.
Join me. They're yours. Like you said, my show, your farm.
So what's funny about these bananas is they're a little easier actually to peel them from the top, from the tip, instead of
cool
from
is
the
that?
stem. If you notice. And then you get this little, it's like a giant pill. Like
None
a
of
little
those
banana
messy
peel.
strings.
Uh-huh.
Well, it certainly tastes banana-y, but there's other notes to it as well, almost an apple-y
Yep.
kind of note to it.
We consider this to be a sub-acid type. So it has this apple-y, lemony kind of flavor.
Yeah.
If you get them even riper, it almost tastes like a apple pie. It gets almost gooey, and it has that gooey density. This is a really good for baking or dehydrating. We use this a lot as our snack bananas.
Yeah.
But they're also really good to cook with too.
I'm sure you've got a master portfolio somewhere that tells you, but do you know right off the top of your head, how many different species and varieties are you growing out here?
I don't know, maybe 100. I have no idea. I know we have 60 varieties of mangoes, and we had about 30 types of bananas that we've culled back to about 5.
Yeah.
Coconuts, we have maybe 8 different types. Bamboo, we have over 20 that I'm actually bringing that back down to a reasonable number. Pineapples, we do 3 or 4 different types right now, but I'm bringing that down to 2. So like I said, during the tour, we went through a collection phase, an evaluation phase, and now I'm into my curation phase. So now I'm really kind of taking my wins. I'm leaving the losses behind. I'm taking the wins and pushing those forward as I continue to develop the farm, because I'm not finished yet.
So I think what's really remarkable is that you're doing these kind of things in this nearly tropical climate, a subtropical climate here in Southwest Florida, but you're doing everything organically. You're not using pesticides, you're not using fertilizers, and amazingly, you're doing it with no irrigation. That just would seemingly quadruple the challenge to me, trying to put all of those things. It seems like it's asking a lot out of a farmer and asking a lot out of the land.
Yeah, but the way that we're doing this is looking at how that forest across the street grew up. There's nobody watering that either, and there's no fertilizer there. And
that's a very good point.
And I'm looking at green leaves and pretty trees that don't notice that it's a drought right now.
So it's still, you're still in drought conditions? And this is something in Florida, people don't really ever think about drought, but it's not always perfectly rainy. It's drought now. How long has this drought been going on?
It's been dry for a few months now. In the worst years, it can be from October all the way into May. Mm-hmm. Last year was particularly difficult because the rains didn't start until the end of July all the way into August. Mm-hmm. So our absolute longest, hottest days, we still weren't getting rain. And that was particularly challenging for us. On the positive side of that, it made the mangoes taste amazing because the flavors didn't wash out because we didn't have all the extra water.
Yeah.
So I can find a rosy side of just about anything.
Silver lining.
Silver lining. One of the methodologies that I've learned, it's called syntropic agriculture. It's a Brazilian, or it was founded in Brazil. They have a saying that you can plant water. And it's taken me a while to understand what they mean by that. But a big part of it is having stratified forest and having shade and having all this surface area to catch whatever atmospheric water there is. Even though we don't have rainfall for extended periods of time, we do have fog and dew in the mornings. Mm-hmm. So having these grasses and these other species that have these wide leaves that catch that dew and drip it into the soil is helping. Having the shade that's keeping the soil cooler is helping. And having the higher strata of shade that's keeping the trees from getting sun stressed is helping. And it's kind of a cumulative effect. And believe me, I would not have believed it. I would not have believed it until I saw it, until I did it myself. And what's happened for me over the last probably 2 or 3 years is that I've started to lean into it because I see it working.
Right. Emily Goulet.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Sarasota. We have a homestead already.
Okay.
And so, we raise...
So homestead farm.
Yeah, chickens and goats and the whole 9 yards. And we have a raised bed garden. We grow vegetables in and stuff. But
so what kind of things are you growing now?
Oh, well, now it's kind of nearing the end, but okra is still growing and tomatoes and
So you're doing like traditional
raised bed, like vegetable garden kind of stuff, right? But not really through the summer because that doesn't survive much. So
especially in Florida.
Yeah.
People think summertime is farming time.
Not here.
But the further south you get, like July is nothing.
That's one of the reasons that we're so interested in learning these methods, and so that we have something that can be continually producing. Because right now our raised bed gardens, we're getting really close to putting them to bed for the summer.
So are you looking to expand your crop mix or just to find some summer crops you can grow?
Yeah, things that are just perfect for where we live, tropical things. We want to grow mangoes and bananas and all of that and grow it in a way that is most natural and takes care of the land and is regenerative, and those are things that are important to us. Mm-hmm. So we want to learn how to do it right from the start. So we're just getting started on this. We don't know it yet. We're just at the very beginning.
This is your jumping in place.
Yeah.
What were some of the coolest things you saw? What were your favorite things?
Oh my gosh.
You saw?
Well, I loved drinking out of the coconut with the straw.
It was pretty fun.
It was fun. But learning about all the different mango varieties I thought was cool. I didn't know anything about the wild type of mangoes, the little ones. I think those were really interesting. All of the things in the food forest and learning about creating kind of the understory, the underlayers, and how each thing is benefiting the next. I'm fascinated by all of that. Because
we see so much farming as we travel across the country, everything has got to be in direct sunlight. You got to have full sun, full sun, full sun. And then you look at a whole different way of growing and a whole different system where everything is supporting.
And it eradicates a lot of the problems that we have. Full sun here in summer is not our friend. It's too much, and the way he was saying that he was able to do this without irrigation is mind-blowing to us, because it's just like water is a huge deal and a hardship for us. So yeah, to be able to have other systems that can grow things healthily without irrigation and where the shade is provided naturally is incredible, I think.
Most farmers would panic and blanch and their hair would stand on end if you suggested the idea of trying to grow without irrigation.
Yes,
without
yeah,
water.
Right? I know. Yeah, it's so true. It's like, what? Who does that? But that's amazing that there's a way to do it. it would be really helpful for us to learn those methods and start implementing them.
Did you see anything that jumped right out and you said, yeah, we got to try this?
Oh, many, many things. Learning the grasses that we should plant around things, you know, you're learning about Mombasa and Napier and that kind of thing was really helpful. And again, just like learning the layers and things to plant next to each other, learning how to protect pineapples from getting eaten by rodents, which is a huge problem too. I thought all of that was helpful. I learned a lot, and a lot of things that I was wondering about and now feel like some clarity as to how to get started.
Are you taking anything home?
We are.
What'd you get?
One of the dwarf banana trees from the bananas we ate, you know? And also 2 mangoes, the Golden Queen and lemon meringue.
Did Matthew check your pockets for seeds?
No, he didn't. Maybe he should have. No, but yeah, we're really excited to bring those trees home and start planting our own food forest.
When I got here today, I thought this was a coconut or a cannonball. I've learned a lot, but it's really fascinating to be in your own home state. I live in Florida. I've been here since the early 90s. To be able to come out and see things I've never even seen here before. It's an extraordinary opportunity. We're going to keep digging and looking, showing you more out here where the food comes from.